Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to News Dose. Seems like today has been a strange day for gaming, as PlayStation may be looking to close down some of their legacy digital storefronts rather soon. This was a big surprise, especially considering one of these platforms are really not all that outdated, and as you would expect, fans are not happy about this at all. I'm not happy about this either, to be completely honest with you, and we will talk about that later on in the video. There was also a rather strange Xbox controversy that popped up over the weekend, so we will talk about that as well, but we do have some good news to go over too, such as a Panzer Dragoon Saga Patreon. Now, we have seen several franchises return in recent years with new successors or even remakes, including the on-rail shooter Panzer Dragoon. We're even getting the sequel as a remake later on this year though. What about the RPG Panzer Dragoon Saga? Panzer Dragoon Saga, while shares the same world as the on-rail shooters that came prior, Saga is actually a classic RPG. This was a big change, but many view Panzer Dragoon Saga as being the absolute best Sega Saturn title and among the all-time greats within its respected genre. Unfortunately though, it wasn't really the best of selling games, but even all of these years later, some fans want Sega to go back to this title and give it a fair shot. With a limited release in the West for the Sega Saturn, this game just didn't really have a fair chance. Well, some independent developers and fans of the original have come together with an idea to bring this game back in a big way. What Sega doesn't, these developers will. They're looking to create a demo for a new Panzer Dragoon Saga game using Unreal Engine 4, and then try to get Sega to license what they're working on. So there's no guarantee that this will ever happen per se. Sega could see their demo and say no. But if you do like the idea of this and want to take a shot on it, then you can go over to their Patreon and support them there. At the very least, it's cool to see somebody try to revive Panzer Dragoon Saga. Sega has revived a few games in the last few years, such as Streets of Rage 4 and Panzer Dragoon 1 and 2 with remakes. Now we'll see if they have plans to do the RPG as well, and this is a possible chance for that to happen. And speaking of crowd-supported games, Ty the Tasmanian Tiger 2 had an extremely successful Kickstarter earlier this year, where they met their goal within just 9 hours to port this game to modern platforms. The original HD version released just last year, and now the sequel is planned to release for the PS4, Xbox One, and Nintendo Switch in July of 2021. They just dropped a brand new trailer to show how it's coming along, and it's looking really good with some visual enhancements, a new hardcore mode, and it has achievements and trophies, which is always a nice addition. I think this will be the perfect game to play on the Switch specifically though, and you know the thing I really like about these coming back? I honestly don't think we get enough good 3D platformers anymore, and Ty is one of those franchises that were made during the prime of 3D mascot platformers in the early 2000s. A lot of people missed out on these games though, and with a re-release for modern platforms, hopefully those who did miss out on it can go back and check it out now. Who knows? If it's successful enough, maybe the developers will make a brand new game. They have expressed interest in that idea. They want to port all 3 games in the original trilogy, which so far has been successful thanks to crowdfunding, and if that does well enough, they can grow their team for a full-on sequel to the original trilogy. They of course did Ty 4 as a side-scroller, but it sounds like they have much bigger ambitions for Ty 5 if they can put the team together for it. Let's talk about Nintendo though, and one of my favorite games from them ever, Kid Icarus Uprising. I am a huge fan of Kid Icarus Uprising for the Nintendo 3DS. It's absolutely one of my favorite games on the 3DS, and really one of my favorite games from Nintendo, period. I do hold this game in very high regards. It's just so different being a Nintendo third-person shooter action-adventure type of game. The gameplay is a blast, mixing in its fast-paced aerial sections with its ground-based combat, and the story and dialogue was a lot of fun as well. I love listening to the characters banter back and forth as you go through each level. It doesn't really feel like a lot of Nintendo's other IP, but still the same high quality you've come to expect with Nintendo. And for that reason, there have been a lot of people hoping for some kind of sequel on the Nintendo Switch. Well, Sakurai took to Twitter to celebrate Uprising's 9th birthday and admitted that they have gotten numerous requests for a sequel or remake. And that initially sounds like a good thing, as he's acknowledging its 9th anniversary, until he says that it would be difficult. In other words, we're unlikely to see a sequel or remake anytime soon, as pointed out by a trusted Japanese translator. And okay, I can understand not doing a remake because the whole game is designed around the idea of using a stylus to aim rather than just analog sticks. That would fit the quote pretty much exactly it would be difficult porting that to the Switch and keeping its gameplay intact. As for a sequel though, it just seems like it's not on the table right now, which is unfortunate. I think Kid Icarus has a lot of potential as a franchise. It's different in terms of gameplay, it offers good characters with a well-rounded story, and I think that they could do a lot more with the visuals as well. I mean, even Immortals Fenyx Rising, which released recently by Ubisoft, kind of reminded me of Kid Icarus, and it would be interesting to see what Nintendo could do with Kid Icarus in an open-world type of game like that. Unfortunately though, it sounds like this isn't going to happen anytime soon. Hopefully that changes in the future though, because I mean, again, I think this game has so much potential. I think this game is different compared to some of Nintendo's other games, and I think they could do a lot with this franchise. Now, last week we talked about Nier Automata coming to Xbox Game Pass for PC, which is an amazing game to include. I do believe Nier Automata is an absolute masterpiece of a game, and this further cements Xbox Game Pass Ultimate as the best deal in gaming. However, there has been some controversy with this release, and that's because Nier Automata has been available on Steam for 3 years, and Square Enix didn't exactly support the Steam version. It does have some issues that they haven't patched yet, but luckily the community has fixed much of that with a mod, but really they shouldn't have to do that. You shouldn't really have to take an extra step to fix a game, and that's where fans are really upset with the Xbox Game Pass for PC release. It's actually a different version of the game that does fix the problems it originally had on PC. Now to be clear, they're not upset that Xbox Game Pass has a better version. On one side, that is absolutely amazing for subscribers of Xbox Game Pass, but for people who already bought the Steam version are kind of wondering why Square Enix hasn't fixed the Steam version while porting a better version to a different storefront on PC. Well, the Steam community has voiced their frustrations by review bombing Nier Automata on Steam. And you know what? They might actually have a point this time. I do think Square Enix should update Nier Automata on Steam, and as I said last week, I wouldn't rule that out just yet. It could be that they were just focusing on the Xbox Game Pass version first, and then they might do the same with Steam. Let's hope that's the case, but I mean, you never really know when it comes to Square Enix. In the meantime though, if you don't have Nier Automata on PC, go with the Xbox Game Pass version, and really, it's such an amazing subscription service. You'll be happy for more than just Nier Automata. I mean, they just added EA Play to it as well. I believe that was last week. So I'd recommend Xbox Game Pass for PC, even if Nier didn't have a better version than Steam. Now we have to talk about PlayStation legacy titles today. So Sony themselves have not confirmed this just yet, but reports are coming out that PlayStation will be shutting down their PlayStation 3, PSP, and Vita stores later this year. From the sounds of it, the PS3 and PSP store will officially go away on July 2nd, and then the Vita store will shut down on August 27th. Yeah, as you would expect, the game community is not happy about this at all. You're talking about a huge library of games for 3 different consoles, not even all that old, just removing all of their digital games. I mean, the Vita still has some new releases here and there, and they're abandoning that platform already. I know the Vita did not do well per se, but truthfully, it's one of my favorite platforms of all time, and to see them remove the digital store not even 10 years later is a huge disappointment. The Vita is a console that has access to a large library of games, and not just Vita games, but also PSP titles and PlayStation 1 games. These, however, will just be flat out gone, and because we haven't heard from Sony yet, there are a lot of questions about how they will deal with something like this. As an example, will they allow you to re-download these games again as long as you own the title? If not, then you'll need a large hard drive or memory card to store all of the games that you own, and even then you should probably make a backup in case that gets corrupted. There's also games with DLC, and if you don't have access to the store, then you will no longer be able to buy DLC, and that is a downside of not having something included with a standard release. What about access to signing into the PlayStation Network though, as your games are tied to your ID? And there's a ton of other concerns related to this, and has brought up the long-running debate of digital games versus physical. More and more gamers today are going that digital route, and even PlayStation did an all-digital PlayStation 5 console this generation. With them abandoning their legacy storefronts though, this does not give fans a lot of confidence in the future of all digital games on PlayStation consoles. I think what we need to do though is kind of hear what PlayStation says about this. There's a lot of panic happening right now, and rightfully so, and theories on why your digital libraries won't work in the future, but we need to hear from Sony themselves. They might allow you to re-download games as long as you own them, or maybe they have a plan to lessen the blow. They could use PlayStation Now to migrate much of the PS3 library, which I don't really think is a great replacement, but I mean, it's something. Or maybe they plan to do more with the PS5 backwards compatibility. That's questionable though, just because Jim Ryan is now the PlayStation boss. New PlayStation boss Jim Ryan has never really given a vote of confidence for their legacy games. In the past, when asked about this, he seemed baffled on why anybody would want to play older games. Yeah, I don't agree with that at all, and I play older games all the time, but he doesn't seem to be a major supporter for legacy titles. I guess we'll see what happens with all this, but it might be time to start adding games to your wish list and then buy them when you can before each store closes down. Hopefully they do a big sell if this indeed is true. Best case scenario right now though is that if all this is true, maybe Sony looks at all this backlash that's happening right now and then backtracks on this decision. On to our final topic though, an odd Xbox controversy popped up over the weekend. This was trending over on Twitter, and that was with the new first-party Xbox wireless headset, which seems to have gotten rave reviews so far. It's pretty impressive for the price, but one thing blew up over the weekend, and that was with Dolby Atmos. Yeah, so this whole thing is really strange, but what's happening here is that somebody found out that Dolby Atmos is free for Xbox headsets for 6 months, and then after that you have to pay a one-time licensing fee of $15. This is not anything new. This has been a thing for years and years. Yes, Dolby requires a licensing fee for Atmos, but somehow this revelation has turned into a huge controversy and a lot of confusion linked to Xbox. So we're just going to clear a few things up and then just kind of move on. Like I said, Dolby has done this for years and years, so this isn't really anything new, but just like many other audio devices, Xbox headsets do have other options. In other words, you are not forced to use Dolby Atmos or pay any kind of licensing fee at all. You can pay a one-time licensing fee if you want Dolby Atmos, and it's a great option, but you also have access to Windows Sonic, which is Microsoft's take on spatial sound. So to clear things up, this is nothing new for Dolby Atmos. It has nothing to do with Microsoft or Xbox, and you also have Microsoft Sonic as a free long-term option. You're not going to turn on your headset 6 months from now and it's just going to stop working. So again, just to clear things up real quick. Like I said, this was a strange controversy, but there it is. Before we go though, let's take a look at the poll of the day, and with Capcom releasing the heavily anticipated Monster Hunter Rise later this week for the Switch, I wanted to ask you all on if you're going to get Monster Hunter Rise when it releases on March 26. And most of you all said no, you're not going to pick up Rise day one. Several of you mentioned waiting for the PC release while playing Monster Hunter World in the meantime, and okay, I can understand that. Monster Hunter World is still a fantastic game, obviously, but I do expect this release for Rise to be huge. It's rumored that they will be shipping more than 1.5 million units to Japan alone, which is absolutely insane, and I think a lot of people will pick up the Switch to play Rise. In fact, Slayterith mentioned ordering a Switch to play Rise. So I think for me, I'm very intrigued to see how this game sells compared to Monster Hunter World, especially over in Japan. I thought the demo was a lot of fun, and I expect it to review well when it comes out, followed up by some massive success for the Switch. For all of you waiting for the Steam release though, I do understand that. You may want something like better visuals, and it could also end up being a version with DLC included. That's something that Capcom does do quite a bit actually, so I could see like a more complete version releasing for PC when it comes next year. Anyways though, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget to bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.